Back when I initially switched to Linux, I always had the Windows copy on a second hard drive, just in case I want to play some games that are not yet compatible with it. But over time, dual booting became very annoying, especially since almost every game I own already works perfectly on Linux. And with that, I decided that it was time to purge Windows from my systems once and for all. My journey of switching to Linux as my main gaming platform wasn't without its hiccups, of course. But in the end, I see myself with a much different mindset than before. When initially trying it out, from a gaming perspective, I was pretty much one of the worst possible target groups. A guy that plays Valorant, Destiny 2, and also had an active Gamepass subscription, which I used to play the Halo Infinite campaign, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and a couple more games. Essentially all the stuff that doesn't work natively on Linux, either due to a technical or management issue with anti-cheat support, or because subscription services are not just being distributed via a regular standalone program. Not having the Game Pass available on Linux is kind of a big deal for a lot of gamers, since they essentially lose access to their games. Many in the Linux community try to belittle this issue by saying if you want access, then you can use the Cloud Edition, which is technically correct, but you have to pay additional money for an objectively much worse experience. That's some bad advice right there. But what I learned from gaming on Linux is that I will never buy another subscription service like Microsoft's Game Pass. Reason being? Well, games get removed. It's nothing new, but the less I played, the more I noticed how frequent this stuff happens. I can't remember which game it was, but the fact is that I was playing it and just 1 week after it was announced that it was being removed. Then I of course didn't get to play it for weeks and it was just gone. The Game Pass has great value if you like Microsoft's own or affiliated games, or if you like to try out as many as you can, but it's definitely not good for game preservation. I like new games, but sometimes I do wanna play some of my older ones as well, which I then would have to buy in some way anyway. While it's of course not ideal that the Game Pass is not available on Linux, it actually helped me saving money, while my overall gaming behavior didn't really change all that much. If I wanna try out a new game, I can simply get it on Steam. Yeah, sure, it's still not ideal because it's all digital and you're just getting a license, blah blah blah, but it takes a long time on Steam for a game to be removed. And even if it is, very often it's just a store listing, so that's also fine by me. If I don't like the game, then I do have a return window of 14 days as long as I didn't play longer than 2 hours, which should have already given you an idea if you like it or not. Sure, you technically need to leave your money in your Steam wallet and at some point spend it there as well, but giving it to Microsoft is also not better. If it's a very good game, then what are the chances that you're playing more than 2 games in 1 month? Statistically speaking, most probably don't. Anyway, I guess it's fair to say that I'm not really missing out on the Game Pass whatsoever, since I can essentially get the same thing in a different way. Another thing that changed is my mindset towards anti-cheat protected games. But not really all of them, just the kernel level ones. Back when Valorant released, its anti-cheat Vanguard made news for being a Ring 0 privilege kernel level anti-cheat that needs to be initialized at boot and technically runs at all times unless you manually quit it. Now Vanguard is not the only kernel level anti-cheat that goes that deep. In fact, many others like BattleEye and Easy Anti-Cheat also offer this functionality, and it is being used in games like Destiny 2 and Apex Legends on Windows. Does it help? It's certainly harder to develop cheats at a kernel level, which is why there are statistically less cheats around. But on the other hand, those skilled enough to pull it off are still selling them, and the number is much higher than you think. The truth behind every anti-cheat is, no matter at which level it runs, it needs to be actively maintained. Valorant's cheating problem is seemingly much smaller than Apex Legends, yet both use a kernel level anti-cheat. An anti-cheat is only as good as it is maintained. This starts with blocking ads of cheating websites to actively investigating and of course banning players manually as well. And you don't necessarily need kernel access for that. So-called rage hacks like in Counter-Strike could easily be detected with some basic server-side anti-cheat that is based on probability. Now, I'm not an anti-cheat developer and I don't know what's going on in the background, but I'm still just gonna assume that this is not in place because there just is no evidence about it anywhere. EA just recently ruined Battlefield 1, 5 and 2042, as well as FIFA, with their own in-house anti-cheat solution. And I promise you now that the situation will not be better than before, since why would EA invest a lot of money into supporting those older games? They just made it better for a while, then it's gonna be bad again, plus they also banned Linux players. And you know what? I honestly don't care anymore. For what it's worth, gaming on Linux has opened my eyes to other games that offer support and are sometimes even better. If Apex Legends also receives the EA anti-cheat, which is not that unlikely after the recent Global Series fiasco, then instead of installing Windows to play it, I'm just gonna play something else. Like really? I know what a proper developer costs, and I know that EA of all is probably not gonna be able to handle all those cheaters anyway. Staying on user space and investing more into not giving the client device more info than it needs to have is the much better way, since you don't break compatibility and you don't need to install a rootkit onto your PC. Oh, and that's another thing. Just take a look around in the online world. Companies get hacked all the time, no matter how good their security is. Even if the kernel-based anti-cheats are secure, they could always be compromised in some way. And once this happens, oh boy, that will be fun. And you know what's even better? Even some hardware is now offering some form of cheating right out of the box. So good luck detecting that. I mean seriously, what are they going to do? Ban everyone who uses that monitor? Like I said, I honestly don't care anymore, and I certainly won't support those publishers and developers that pull off bad practices. But here's what I would do if I were to play those games. If I still wanna play on PC, then I will just get a second one, which is in its own virtual LAN and has essentially zero ties to the rest of my network. Or honestly, just get a console, since a lot of games nowadays support mouse and keyboard. In an ideal case, I would just set up a virtual machine, but kernel level anti-cheats usually detect them. Except Destiny 2 on GeForce Now for some reason. I don't know how they did it or if BadLie or Bungie has a sort of certification process, but Destiny 2 on GeForce Now is just running Windows 11 on a Xen hypervisor. Would be quite interesting looking into that architecture. The rest of my gaming experience has mostly seen improvements as well. Despite Piper, a mouse configuration software, not really receiving updates, I still actually prefer it over Logitech G Hub. Why? Well, honestly, I don't need to configure my mouse that often, but every time I do, I always had to update G Hub, or it occasionally even hangs. For a tool that just serves a simple purpose, it's incredibly unreliable. Which is why I usually save my configuration to my mouse anyway. I think it's safe to say that switching to Linux has had its fair share of problems, but in the end, my gaming experience is now better and more healthier because of it. I'm usually a pretty tough nut when it comes to trying out new games, and this is the perfect opportunity to do so. I don't need a Game Pass, since I can keep my games way longer or return it anyway, I can play the games I like, and I still believe that it is inevitable for the Linux desktop to become a more mainstream market. I've said it once and I'm gonna say it again, it doesn't take much to get the ball rolling. A few sales here, a couple of distro installs there, and the market share will increase steadily, until you actually start seeing Linux laptops in a store. It's only a matter of time. If you've liked this video, then please feel free to show it with a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and all that's left to say now is good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. I'll see you around.